Yeah, that's right. It's nothing but Netflix, and it's your host, Chappell, back again to talk about what's new and what's popping on Netflix right now. And this week, we are going to be talking about some power moves with Shaquille O'Neal. And with me, I need to bring in somebody who knew a little bit about business and a little bit about power moves. It's Akiva. Akiva, welcome back.
Hey, thank you for having me. As you know, I like to point out, first guest in the history of the show. Can you commit to me being the last guest also when this, 2050, when this podcast ends?
Happily. Yeah, I will definitely like save that spot for you, Akiva. At
Thank
least
you.
that's where I'll know what's going on here on Nothing But Netflix. But yeah, we'll have to find something to talk about in 2050. Maybe we'll be seeing Sharief O'Neal's power moves by then. Maybe.
Let's not. Let's not end with
And look, we can end on something of a high note. But yes, if you're listening to this, then hopefully you have gone and watched Shaquille O'Neal's Power Moves on Netflix. It's like in the top 5 or 6 shows on Netflix right now. But of course, with a big name like Shaq, you're going to get that kind of push. But if you haven't watched it, Akiva and I are going to talk all about it. Akiva, I reached out to you because I know you like the sports. Did you feel like this was something that you enjoyed, or was this like, I could have skipped this?
Well, I do like Shaq.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm interested in, and I like documentaries. Was this a sports documentary? It was probably more business, a little bit more business than sports. Enjoyed is a strong word. I think Netflix is like really opened up like the lane of this should be a 1.5 hour regular documentary, but we're going to turn into a 6-part TV show, right? This is a TV show.
Yeah. Like 30 minutes. We don't get a lot of that anymore. Just like a season of television that's 7 episodes or 6 episodes, 30 minutes a piece. Like you said, they could have combined a lot of this. There's a lot of fluff in there as well. But Shaq clearly scored some contract with Netflix that said, okay, let's watch your journey as you try to revitalize the brand Reebok here on Netflix. And so we will get 6 30-minute episodes. We're following Shaq and Allen Iverson as they put the team on their backs and try to staff Reebok with the next up and coming athletes and really put a face on this brand that what I'd say had probably fallen off the most of all like the sneaker brands in recent years.
Well, I'm excited to talk to you about it because I know you are a bigger sneaker guy than me. And I'll be honest, one thing, and I joke about this sometimes, I've read a lot of history books recently, and because I didn't pay attention in history class, like I know who wins the wars, but I don't always know who wins the battles and like, which generals die. Like, so sometimes I'll joke like no spoilers, even though it's like a famous history thing. I didn't know going in, like, I knew Reebok still exists, but I didn't know who they were going to sign or like where the brand is now. So I was like, at least, and I wasn't Googling beforehand. So I was like, you may have known more than me about where they end up, but like, I was like a little bit, intrigued as like, oh, is this going to be a big hit? Did Shaq save Reebok?
Yeah, no, I honestly felt the same way. Akiva, I used to be very tapped in on the basketball, but this last season in the NBA, it really did a number on me and my favorite team, the Dallas Mavericks. So I'm not gonna lie to you, I kind of tapped out. Yeah, as a Mavericks fan, it was a tough year. We took some else, and it made me not want to watch the game anymore. I kind of was like stepping back. Now, the NBA giveth and it takes away, I guess, as well. Like there's balance there because we sacrificed a lot, but the Mavericks will be back. And so I do have something to look forward to next year. But as far as this goes, there was a lot of up and coming stars that I didn't know about. I was kind of like finding out all this stuff just watching this. I knew about Shaq, I knew about AI, but that's about the extent. And so, yeah, this was very educational for me. I don't know how entertaining it was though. I felt like I think like you said, this is very much like a business documentary. If you love basketball, I don't even know if it speaks that much to you. I don't even know if it speaks that too much to you if you love shoes. It's kind of like, do you like Shaq? If you like Shaq, I think this is the show for you.
Yeah, and it's even Shaq, who I do. I mean, I think you like Shaq. I know I'm a Shaq guy. Shaq is so likable, but I do think this was like him trying to convince the audience nonstop using the same couple catchphrases where like that he is really into the business and like, oh, I'm not just named the president, I'm actually working hard, and I am, which he did make me believe. Like I did come out of here believing he is spending time running Reebok. Although Shaq is famous for following the Magic Johnson route and having like 100 different businesses, and I think he has been incredibly successful. But he also has like a day job where he's on TV multiple times a week, in Atlanta, where this and Reebok is based out of Boston. So like, how often is he there? Probably every time he's been there was probably recorded and in this 3-hour documentary. But I do think he cares. Iverson, it's also seeing, Iverson has had a lot of interesting business experiences, I think also. Iverson, I think, basically at one point was broke. Like the second he was out of the league, people were saying. He does have the lifetime contract, so unlike a lot of pro athletes, he still has a lot of income coming in, and you could just make a lot of money just being Allen Iverson. We didn't get that much AI. Like this was a Shaq show, even though at the beginning, you start off and it's like Shaq's the president, Allen Iverson's the vice president. Those are the two guys who are most synonymous with Reebok, and you really didn't hear a lot of like AI. What he's doing, why he's doing it. He's not going to really visit the athlete Shaq is. Did you think AI really added a lot to this?
Well, that was the thing. I really didn't realize how important AI and Shaq were to Reebok brand. I love sneakers, but I'm a Jordan guy. Like I like Nikes, I like Air Jordans. That's kind of where I live, and that's just because like name recognition and Michael Jordan, who he was, like, and then also like the quality of shoe. It's a good shoe, and so like I've been there for a while. I was not aware that Shaq and AI were basically the people that initially got Reebok to where it was supposed to be. So when I saw him here, I was like, okay, I knew he was part of it now, but I see the history. And yeah, I was expecting to see a lot more of him. It seems like they had like two approaches to things. Shaq had his own like business approach, but then he's like, you bring in AI when you want to lean into what Reebok is pushing now, is that you can be authentic. You can be a basketball player and you can just be like you want to be. Allen Iverson, who was famously tatted up, and he wasn't dressing like everybody. He wasn't wearing the suits and all that kind of stuff. Super controversial at the time. Now it's super normal for people to do that. And so it's like you have to have someone like AI to be the poster child of like, come to Reebok, you could be yourself. And so I think we got that. But you're right, we didn't get a ton more than that.
Yeah. So can you tell me and the listeners, like, because you do know shoes much better than me, what was your impression of Reebok growing up? Were you into the pumps at all? Like, where do you leave off at Reebok? Because for people who don't know, so the premise is Reebok basically goes away. Adidas buys it. It doesn't really exist except as maybe like a CrossFit fitness brand. And then one of these branding companies that owns Shaq's likeness and Muhammad Ali's likeness and Marilyn Monroe and Sports Illustrated, they're kind of like these vulture venture capitalists. They bought it back and so, and are trying to make Reebok again. But what did you think about Reebok when you were a kid?
Yeah, when I was younger, I remember Reebok being a basketball shoe, but I think a lot of the shoes got eclipsed by the fame of Michael Jordan. I think that once they really figure out how to make the Air Jordan pop, it's like, why would you wear a Reebok when you could be like Mike? And I think Be Like Mike was such a big campaign back then that it's like, yeah, you could have that, but it's like, if you wanted your parents to splurge on a shoe, you weren't getting Shaqs. You were going to get Air Jordans. And I think the other thing with Reeboks is they were way more affordable. They were reasonable for you to get kids a shoe. So it was like a shoe that will just like reliable. You would wear it. It wasn't going to look ugly, but it wasn't going to put you up in like any status realm or anything like that. Like you weren't going to have the flyest shoes ever, but they were like solid. Shaq will say that throughout his time at Reebok, they were never number 3. They were always number 2. It was always right after Nike.
Yeah,
and
Adidas didn't exist. Under Armour and New Balance weren't really in it.
Yeah, so I feel like that was the thing. It was like, okay, like it's like Reebok was fine. And then like you said, you mentioned the pumps. I think things like that was what really made Reebok stand out, is that they had like these additional.
I definitely had. Did you have pumps? I definitely had at least one pair of pumps.
Oh yeah, you had to get the pumps at some point because like they existed, and in theory they were supposed to make you better playing basketball, and you jump higher or you can dunk maybe because you got the pumps. How much are you pumping up your shoe, Akiva? Like they tell you probably like pump 3 times, and that most kids are like going to 10. Yeah, like
it'll pop. They'd say, oh, if they pump it 8-10 times, it could pop. Be careful, even though I don't know how much it was really doing, but
right. But we'll even see clips of that in this series where basketball players on the court. And I was like, oh man, the game's getting tight. Let me pump up my shoes a little bit, which
like
probably
Popeye
never
eating spinach.
Exactly, which is that probably never helped anybody ever. But yeah, that was kind of my memory of Reebok. And so it's funny because watching this, Shaq is kind of living in that world too, where he's like, yeah, a shoe needs to look nice. It needs to match your uniform. And the technology of the shoe really doesn't matter unless it looks cool, because that's really all that matters. You can see like his marketing people and the engineers talking about the technology of the shoe. Oh, we have this, we have that. And Shaq, his eyes are glazing over because he's thinking kids don't care about that. They just want to know if the shoe looks cool or not. And so Reebok had a few struggles, Akiva, especially just because Shaq's kind of living in a world that he doesn't understand. You know, he's still learning the shoe side of this business. It's like he has the business acumen, I guess, but he's got to learn what the kids want, and that's the hard part.
Yeah, what's interesting about Shaq specifically is big men were not really shoe peddlers to the extent of, most of the big shoe guys from Jordan and, I mean, even, in the 90s, like Marbury and Steph Curry now, LeBron, like any of the top 10 biggest shoe guys were not like, what did, David Robinson, did he have a shoe? Like I was a Spurs fan. I didn't wear a David Robinson shoe. Did Dirk ever get a shoe? Patrick Ewing. So most of these guys didn't really have a shoe. So Shaq did, but also I also think Shaq has such a weird relationship probably with shoes because he has such a big foot that he's not wearing like the normal thing. Like everything he's wearing is probably super custom made. He's like a 22 size foot or something like that. So he's probably got stuff going on, like, especially he had like plantar fasciitis, right? So like he was probably, it was probably like the outside of fake shoe, and he was probably wearing, whatever his doctor was making him do or something. So he's like a unique guy versus Iverson. Like you could sell like it's all in the shoes for Iverson because he was so small, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like, if you're a big guy, it's really difficult to find shoes too. So that wouldn't be my go-to person for the person who's going to help me with shoes. And then of course they've aged out a little bit. They don't really understand. Akiva, I went to my little cousin's basketball game a few months ago, and all the I think their uniform was like red and blue, but all the kids were wearing like hot pink shoes or like yellow shoes, and they were all low top shoes. And I was thinking, how are they playing in these shoes? And the whole time like someone's uncle bewildered at what was going on. Like, do they understand that pink shoe looks ridiculous just with what they're wearing? And then this documentary starts, and the first thing they say is, yeah, the kids don't match anymore. They don't match the color of the uniform. They're weird. They like the bright colors. And me and Shaq made the same face. We were completely confused. So yeah, there's like a learning curve to fashion. It changes all the time. And I think with basketball, you have to match like athleticism and performance with fashion. And that's a thing that a lot of shoe brands don't have to do. So I understand why they were able to get content out of this, Let
me ask you a question. At your cousin's basketball game, were the kids all wearing the Reebok Engine A's?
I was thinking really hard. I was like, I don't think so. I do
They're
not
probably
think so.
wearing Nike's Jordan brand, like.
Yeah, well,
because it's such an uphill battle, right? Like even these kids, like let's say because they do, I think, sell you in the show that the shoes look good, right?
Yeah.
And I think if like my kids for next season for basketball, because you always got to get kids new shoes since they're growing. If I was like, hey, what do you think about the Engine Aids? Even if they like looked at them and they thought it was nice, like they couldn't be seen in Reeboks, like that's not cool. The kids would probably make fun of them.
Yeah, and in this documentary, we'll find out that the kids honestly don't even know what Reebok is because a lot of them weren't born when it was popping. And so Shaq's telling them, I will give you a shoe. I will literally give you a shoe. It's by Reebok. And the kids are like, so what's Reebok? And I don't know. I don't even think Sharief, Shaq's son, had a really good explanation for what is Reebok. Because he kind of says the same thing. Like, I mean, it's like an older brand, but it's back. It's like, I don't think kids are looking for, the way to bring back the older brand. To me, I didn't feel like a selling point.
Well, when Shaq was at his shoe peak in the mid 90s, Sharief was not alive at all, right? So there's no way he would have known. Sharief missed almost all of Shaq's prime. So I think Shaq probably stayed with Reebok his whole career. I don't remember off the top of my head. But, Shaq also has this very sad... Shaq was the coolest guy in the 90s, and he has rap albums and he's got the movies, and then his sort of like when he was past his prime, like Iverson mostly faded gracefully, just to like use an example. Shaq, like when you want to give an example in life, not even in basketball, of something that's washed, you might say like Shaq on the Celtics, right? Like Shaq, he had a bunch of years where it was sad. And even like the end Kobe fights, they thankfully they ended in a good place before Kobe died, but Kobe definitely was winning the war of public opinion for a while. even if Shaq, roasted him when he went on stage with the Kobe diss and stuff. So there was like a period where he sort of like fell off, and now he's definitely back, and he's in every commercial, and he's kind of like the NBA Santa Claus, and he's like this happy jolly guy. But there was definitely like a fallow period, and that's when Sharief grew up, which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I 100% agree. So Shaq comes from a time where he's larger than life. He is one of the biggest names. He has this shoe brand, and everything's looking up. And then, like you said, it kind of gets a decline. And so now it's like Shaq's image is kind of like, I won't say tarnished, but it's not at the height of the popularity that it was. I feel like if Shaq was doing this, during his time at the Lakers, like no one's pushing back against, Shaq going and getting these kids and like trying to hype them up as the next big thing. But now it's kind of like, oh, this guy I've never really seen play basketball is talking about giving me a shoe that I've never really seen anybody play basketball in, and working for his company. But then over there you have Nike, and Nike is Nike. And so he has an uphill battle. He first starts off with saying, okay, we got to bring in some big names. And I think that's a good idea. From a business standpoint, you want basketball players recruiting basketball players. You want people with a lot of name recognition. But do you think Shaq is like the best idea? Because he will eventually send Sharief, but I don't know. I feel like Shaq is one of those names that I might never have seen you play basketball, but I know Shaq. Who doesn't know Shaquille O'Neal?
Well, remember, he's on TV still a couple times a week. I think the players all do know him. I think it's funny. If he was on ESPN, they wouldn't know him. Like, they might not even know Kendrick Perkins, who's a little bit more of their contemporary. But I think I have. If you don't know Shaq and you're a basketball player, like that would blow my mind. Now, maybe Modest Buzeles, growing up in Chicago, like maybe he didn't know Shaq, like, and they wouldn't put it in. Like he said, he didn't know Reebok. But yeah, I think how much is Shaq really doing the pitch versus like, is it really the CEO or the agents doing things, and he's sort of coming in for the show once, because we don't see him pitching anybody who says no, really, right? They do use a bunch of names, which is interesting in the show.
Yeah.
Did you have an idea? Because I wasn't like spoiled at all. Did you have an idea? Because at the beginning they're like, we're going to get some really good players, we're going to spend, and then they smash cut, and they do this twice, Chappelle, to Giannis Antetokounmpo, Anthony Edwards, and Jalen Brunson. I'm like, wow, Reebok is back. They got those three guys. That's incredible. That is a big budget. I don't know how they got Giannis. I didn't hear about it, but that is awesome. And that's like crazy. They want him to be the face of the NBA. And they showed those guys twice, and I was like, wow, this is a roster. They must have 20 guys, 3 all-stars. This business is easy. And they never even mentioned those guys, who were probably all Nike guys. Maybe Brunson, but Brunson, was sort of a late bloomer, might have gotten signed by one of the smaller the companies. Because there's also like a few Chinese brands. I don't know if you know who that like have a bunch of guys, like mid-level decent players also. So there's like 15. There's a lot of competition, and none of those guys. I mean, can I spoil it for you? They have one NBA player still. Modest Buzeles is the only guy in the entire NBA last year, and that includes like the two-way guys who were G leaguers that come up for a night when everyone's sick, or like when the team stopped trying at the end of the year. The only guy in the entire NBA who wore Reeboks last year was Buzeles. In the whole league. They should have made it even more like an uphill battle. Like they understated how I thought like Shaq was going to come in, and he's like, oh, like these guys are out of our budget. They're talking to SGA, and the only guy they signed was Modest Buzeles. Like SGA must have just done Shaq a solid and like pretended, because we don't hear him. He must have been like, yeah, you could say you're talking to me, but I'm going to sign with, was he Converse or something like that?
Yeah, he signed with Converse.
Yeah, and he was probably never. It was probably like, hey, we just need to add some drama. We can't get SGA on the, because I was like, wow, they got SGA and Giannis. Like, this is crazy. I thought for a second, once they're showing them, they're going to sign them. Like, Reebok is back. Like, watch out, Nike. Forget about Under Armour. They're going for number one. Yeah. Which I mean, they should, but that budget must be small, and that's what the venture capitalists do. Also, they're interested in turning a profit, so they're probably not going to spend $30 million on like a, an all-star starter type guy. They're hoping that they catch a young guy, like they did with Buzeles, and some of the other guys. Do you think what do you think of who was the most interesting to you of the young players they were recruiting?
This is tough because like we meet so many of them, right? Like, because that's the thing. we start off with SGA. We get told from the beginning that's not going to happen. Like that's probably not going to happen. So we have a couple others that we would need. We got Dink Pate, who is a name that we're going to see follow throughout this. Ace Bailey, who went to Rutgers, is another name, but we will never see Ace Bailey. He will no-show them essentially. And then
Correct.
I think like they just never even touch him. Like I think he just moves on with his life.
Well, Ace
and
and Dylan Harper were, I think, always Nike guys. You know, they went to Rutgers together, which is probably there's
Nike
a story
school.
there because why are two stupid? No, it's an Adidas school, but Rutgers is so sad, Chappell, that they're like, yeah, you could come here, you could wear any shoe. We'll get the, we'll get Adidas sign off. So two Nikes guys went to Adidas together, an Adidas school together, which doesn't make any sense. And Shaq pointed out, like, there is no Reebok school. There's not one school in the country that has Reebok apparel anymore because when Adidas bought it, they took over those contracts.
Yeah. So yeah, we never see Ace. We never like it's never a realistic possibility. But then Akiva, they keep going younger. They're like, okay, we they go after Modest. He's like you said, he's the only person in the league. Everybody else is like we're looking at high school kids at this point. Like when we got to Nate, I was like, okay, not so much what are we doing, but like this kid has no clue who Shaq is. Like he knows Shaq. None. Yeah, he's seen the guy before, but he doesn't know. He's like, I don't know about Reebok. I don't know about this man. I barely wanted to start playing basketball. He's like, I started playing basketball during COVID because we couldn't be around people. So I just would go to the basketball court and shoot so I could get better than my friends in the meantime. And now he's a phenom about to go to college and about to have this big break. So I thought his story was the most fascinating because you could tell his mom didn't know who he was. His dad could care less. And like, it was like, Shaq, like, this is your low hanging fruit. If you can't get this kid, I don't know what you're doing.
Yeah, and they do get him. And I think that's like, they must have thrown somewhat of a bag at him because he's actually the number 2 guy behind Cooper Flagg, who's going to Duke. So he's going to Tennessee, Nate Ammon. But he is almost definitely, unless he like collapses, he's better chance than not to be a lottery pick next year. So that's really where I think the company's hopes are. But I should also, even though they only have one NBA player, the show definitely focuses on a lot. They have, and I don't know if this was really Shaq's idea, but he makes it seem like he is an LSU guy like Angel Reese. They have gone hard on the WNBA players, and they have 4 or 5 WNBA players, including Angel Reese, who, by social media metrics is the biggest star in the league. Caitlin Clark, but she's got the most Instagram followers. Like, that's no joke to have Angel Reese and DeJounte Carrington and some of those people. And also in the WNBA, like, such a small league, right? There's only 12 teams. Like everyone's pretty much getting playing time in a name. So they're doing much.
Angel Reese is his most, like, this is his prized possession as far as like clients, because like you said, nobody touches her reach. She has her podcast, she has social media presence, and the young girls want to be like her. She's like, you can still be pretty and girly, but you can play basketball. Like that's what she said. You can play basketball and still be a baddie, is what she said in this. And so she's like, yeah, I got a pink shoe. Like we're gonna lead into this Barbie aesthetic. Like he has the tools to make this Reebok pop, but because it's the WNBA, that's another reason why it's an uphill battle. Like it's been documented heavily across the board that WNBA is just not the market that the NBA is. So it's going to be tough. But yeah, Angel Reese, DeJounte Carrington, there are a few people that he manages to get, but we see the ups and downs. We saw him going and try to get, what was her name? Jazzy Davidson. Yes. And I just thought that was tough. Jazzy Davidson probably also could not care about, like, she doesn't care about Shaq.
Also, they probably did a favor. They're like, no, you're not getting an Oregon kid. If Nike loses an Oregon kid, everyone's getting fired,
And the crazy thing is that she was like, oh yeah, it's not even one of the schools that I want. I was like, really? You live in Portland and you don't have any ambition to go to Oregon? She's like, I was thinking Baylor or TCU.
Now she did end up at, she hasn't played it, but I think she's USC. If I'm not mistaken, I think she chose USC, Jazzy Davis.
Yeah, it was on her list. So yeah, it was USC, UCLA, Duke, UConn, and TCU. I was like, how did TCU end up in the mix? But okay.
There's oil money.
Yeah. It gotta be. Yeah, but the thing is, Akiva, the NIL is going to be one of the things that they have to compete with too here, because now these kids can make money from anybody and there's no cap on it. It's not heavily regulated. And so they're talking about how when Shaq was coming up, there was no this, you had to market to the grown-ups and that was it. And now it's like, no, you got to go and get in good with the high schools. You got to get in with the colleges and even establish maybe even brand deals with the colleges, like how Oregon is pretty much run by Nike. The entire state is probably run by Nike as well, so he's in a tough spot. And so we will see it kind of just keep running into walls, like little hiccups. But you're right. I think Angel Reese, the W is probably where they need to focus. And hopefully they're still doing that, because Angel Reese's shoe dropped during All-Star Weekend. And even the documentary will show that there was a lot of buzz behind the release of the shoe.
Yeah, and I think they got Angel Reese early because she'd probably cost 5x what they paid her then. If they were signing her now. So I think it was a good strategy. Also, a few years ago, you would not have legally been able to sign a high school kid, right? Until the very modern era. So I think they're probably just gonna have to throw contracts at a few high school kids and hope one of them pans out. Nate Amen is that's the high end of the spectrum because he's such a top prospect, but they're gonna have to. And I think they did it with Dink Pate. So Dink Pate, like you said. His story is he's the youngest professional basketball player maybe ever in the United States, because he skips. Not only does he not go to the college basketball, he skips his senior year of high school, goes straight to the G League. The G League has a team. I don't think it ever made sense, but the G League had a team which was basically like, instead of college, you come here and we'll have a team of G Leaguers. Problem is, in the G League, it's still like the second most talented league in the world. Those are grown men. So like you have 18-year-old kids coming in against like a 28-year-old guy or like Dwight Howard, people who've been in the NBA who would like kill someone to get back and just get one more 10-day contract or something. That's a tough sell. Like, these kids should be in college. So he's the youngest guy in the league, struggles. The team gets disbanded after the first season because it wasn't a good idea and it wasn't making any money. And I'm sure he was getting paid. They had to pay him to not go to a college that are now paying him. So he's like, what do I do? Let me enter the draft. But he's still a year too young for the draft because he's so young, because he's really technically still in high school, from his age. He's essentially a high school senior going into freshman year of college. So like, no, you're not going to do one more year in the G League. So there's a team in Mexico that took him, a G League team in Mexico City, and he played there. But, his growth is stunted. That's not really a place for growing. They don't teach any defense in the G League because everyone's just trying to make it to the NBA or get a Euro contract. And the show doesn't go into it because they're trying to be positive. And their thing is like, hey, we're going to get one NBA player, one G League player, as if that's like a big market, one WNBA, even though they got like 5 WNBA players, and a high schooler. But I don't think that was their goal. That was just like, all right, that's what we ended up with, and that's what, we'll edit in that's what we're looking for. Every market covered, as if they wouldn't have loved 20 NBA players. But yeah, they got the G League. So Dink Pate, who seems, we meet probably his family more than anybody else, and we get to know him, and he seems like a nice kid, good family. And they're very, by the way, every like single person we meet, Shaq's like, it's all about the family. It's like, well, It helps if they have like a 7'1" wingspan, but I guess that's good that they have a good family. So Dink Pate, basically, the show doesn't get into it, but he might not get drafted. Like he's probably going back to the G League or to Europe. He's not really even a second round pick, because I was just reading a scouting report on the train home, and I'm like, oh, I'm excited for Dink. I'm a Dink Pate guy now. And the scouting report was like, well, he can't shoot, doesn't know how to play defense. He drives a lot, but he's very inefficient. Like, he doesn't really score when he drives. I was like, well, what is he good at? And they're like, well, he's a 6'8" guard.
Right. It's like, we can put a little weight on him and he'd be all right. You can't teach that. You cannot.
But it was they're like, it'll take 4 years because he's so young. It'll take 4 years of training for him to even be useful. But no one's gonna spend 4 years on a kid. Like, your contract will be over.
Yeah, it is crazy because Shaq doesn't have the pool to even make that happen for him, which is crazy because he gets this Reebok contract essentially, and he's I think he's the one who they were putting the most of their hopes on. Like, if Dink can come out of the G League and go into the NBA, he's somebody that we have basically trained up. They talk about how they want somebody who they're good, but they don't know how good they could be, and Shaq is there to unlock their potential, and so they're building the brand of Reebok with these stars in mind. So as they get bigger, the brand will get bigger. So it's like they're really banking on them showing up and, producing more than what meets the eye. I think that he's kind of looking like for that AI, the new AI, right? The new Allen Iverson, who you're like, this guy's a little rough around the edges, but if we work with him, if we let him be him, then we can really get somewhere with this brand. But based on what you just said about Dink, the expectations got to be low here. I had no clue that the show just kind of left us with and then Dink got signed, and that's great too. And It doesn't look like that's great. Doesn't look like it's going to lead to much.
I feel bad because he seemed like a good kid. Listen, maybe it's just funny because the idea of a kid like, I'm not even doing senior year of high school. Maybe he hated school. Maybe there's stuff they didn't tell us.
He turned down 30 colleges, Akiva. 30 college offers. And he was like, no.
They could get you. I'd imagine there are many schools where if you're not a student and it's not easy. I'm sure like that level of playing ball, like you must feel crazy when you're in like an economics class Tuesday morning and you're in the Big Ten and you got to fly across the country to Washington to play a game. So I don't begrudge anybody who I didn't like doing school and it was my only responsibility in college a lot of times. But like there are schools that they will not make, and the schools he mentioned are two of them, Alabama and Arkansas, that will not make an athlete do too much work. But he must not have been interested in, for whatever reason, in staying in school, because senior year of high school, like he would for sure still be in college, but he'd be making a lot of money because you can get paid a lot now to be in college and to be growing with really good coach and professional trainers, like better than he's going to have if he goes to Hungary. Get ready to learn Bulgarian, Dink Pate. So I feel bad for the kid, but he's only 18, so there's plenty of time. If he's a hard worker, there's plenty of time for him to still become a good player.
Well, I think that brings us to one of our hard workers in this show. The Sharief storyline is kind of heartbreaking. It's tough. It's like Sharief, he wants to be a basketball player, but it's kind of cliche in a way. It's like a tale as old as time. Like he wants to go into the family business, but the dad's like, no, go do something else. Like make something of yourself. Don't be a basketball player, which is crazy because this man is like 6'7". It's like, what do you mean go make something of yourself and do some of yourself and go do something else? He's like, we've had enough basketball players in the family. What are you talking about, Shaquille O'Neal? What?
It's the best job in the world. It was so weird. He must have been doing it just because like the show needs him to want it to make it a family business at Reebok. But like, that's a great job. I don't understand. Now, maybe he's like doesn't have a lot of faith in his talent. Now, Sharief, for people who don't know, like it's really the Bronny James story, just with less publicity. Mm-hmm. Sharief is a huge prospect, bigger than Bronny James was. Probably inflated like Bronny James was because of the name, but definitely a huge prospect. And has, I think, heart surgery, right? He has some sort of
open heart surgery,
and never really recovers. First of all, doesn't go to LSU like his dad. Goes to, where was it, UCLA, USC?
I think so, yeah. He was in California.
One of those two schools. And doesn't really play. He was actually like had a couple good games. I looked it up. And then eventually switches to LSU. Also doesn't really play. Listen, it's first of all, he grew up so rich, right? Like it's hard. It's harder to get motivated when like you don't need to make it in the NBA, especially if your dad is offering you, this really good job at Nike. But also, like I'm sure they may have underplayed the health things. He shows you his scar. He's got this massive scar. I'm sure teams would be wary of it, but he never really performed. But he's got a good excuse. Like he had some real health issues. It is interesting that during the show he gets like basically a tryout for the Kings. And then they don't sign him, but they put him on the G League team. Do they mention that he gets cut almost immediately from the G League team, or they don't mention it on the show?
No, they don't even get to that part.
He gets cut like 10 days later, Chappell. Like, well, they knew about it. It wasn't like, he gets cut. Now, he could go to Europe, but he said himself, like, he's not interested, right? He could probably make more money at Reebok than
Well, Shaq doesn't want him to go. I think that's the other part. Like Shaq keeps telling us, like, no, you're not going to Europe. You're not. Like that's not a thing. Like, you need to stay close to your family. So
it's a little weird. Why? And like Shaq and his wife are pretty famously divorced. Like, so maybe Shaq is a little lonely. Shaq is actually, they don't get into it in the show. This would have been more interesting. Shaq was very introspective about his divorce and how he wasn't always faithful, and like he realizes now it was so stupid. He had the greatest life in the world and he threw it away. He had some really interesting quotes. They don't get into it all. You see his house, which is called, what is it called?
It was called
it's got a crazy name.
Was it? It wasn't the Shaq Mahal. It was something like that.
No, that's he's definitely had one. He's definitely a house. Yeah. He's definitely had a house called the Shaq Mahal. But it's
Shackingham Palace.
Shackingham Palace. That's very good. Shackingham Palace.
Yeah.
So Shackingham, yeah. Shacapulco. There's Realtor.com and every home Shaquille O'Neal has ever owned. That's pretty good.
Shacapulco is perfect. I'm sorry.
Grander of all time.
Yeah, Shacapulco is the top tier. I love that.
That's pretty good. So he's got a lot of houses, man. I'm looking at this. This is a long article.
Yeah. Meanwhile, he's telling his son like basketball is no life for you. It's like, sure, Dad.
Did you get this from selling? I guess maybe from Reeboks, but. You don't see his home life. You don't really see the Nates or Dinks or Angels. Like you don't. It's really Shaq centric, but it's like a little surface level, right? You see him in the business meetings, but you don't like get inside their houses or really meet the people. You don't meet I think he's got a bunch of other kids. You don't meet his other kids at all. I think one of them was at least the best. Actually, he has a daughter who's a really good player. I think is at Florida right now.
Okay.
Shaq, but you don't really meet anybody in the family, and it's so whoever pitched this like to Netflix from Reebok must have gotten a raise because like, hey, we can get a 3-hour commercial for Reebok. No one remembers we exist. We're gonna get a commercial with this, America's favorite pitchman, Shaq, selling Reebok on Netflix, and kids lead it up. Like it's a great branding deal from them. Just to like, this is a huge win, even though the show at times is a little bit stretched out.
No, I think you're right. This is basically a big ass commercial for sure. Especially because like all the stuff that you said, right? Like the stuff that happens with Dink, Sharief getting cut, none of that's in here. So it really does feel like you're rooting for the underdog here, and we love an underdog story. We love like, okay, Shaq's in AI. Like who doesn't love AI? It's like of those two players, these are like universally beloved. Almost, I'll say more for AI than Shaq probably. But
no, I think both at this point.
Yeah.
I think. Especially because he made up with Kobe, I think like Shaq's approval rating is incredibly high these days.
Right, like as long as he keeps dunking on Charles Barkley, like I think he's good. And so, yeah, between the two of them, it's like, how do you not get behind this pair of people that's saying, "Be yourself. I'll give you a shoe. I'm about family. We're about letting you grow with us, building our brand. We're gonna make this all about us." Like he's pitching to us too. So if you're at home watching this, and you're like, "Oh, well, Reebok's kind of cool. I'll support it." Like you said, I think we both left this being like, "Oh, I think I'm a Dink guy now." And, sadly, I'm not. I might be a Nate guy. Right now still. But yeah, Dink guy, you come out of this saying the shoe, you're like, the shoe wasn't bad. You're like, okay, you're seeing like the connection between him and Angel Reese. It's really just a story of like why you should be paying attention to Reebok more than it is Shaq. Because the Shaq stuff, they really lean into some of the more heartbreaking stuff. Like you said, like he doesn't really have a strong family life. It seems like at times he's just wants Sharief to be a part of the family business as far as Reebok goes so that he can be closer to him. And then he he just like completely disavows basketball in Sharief's life because of his health. He'll say like, because of the open heart surgery, I thought I was going to lose my baby and I just can't do that. I refuse to be in a situation where I think he's not going to be healthy if he's playing basketball. So your heart really starts to go out to Shaq too. And I think by the end, I wouldn't be shocked if somebody goes out and buys some Reeboks,
It definitely made me root for Reebok. Like for sure, I'll be happy if Hammett makes the league or they sign people. Like it definitely makes you root for them. It's so interesting that the show mentions it a few times, or like they show it, and it's this unspoken thing that we're not even aiming to be number one, right? Nike's so clearly number one. We can't be number one, and Shaq talks about being number two, but I think to be happy to number 4 or 5 at this point, honestly, like Under Armour's doing so well. Like Steph has his own sub brand, like Jordan does, and there's Adidas and a million other brands at this point. I'm an on shoes guy, even though I don't think they have any players in the NBA. They have a lot of tennis players. There's the Nike thing is like, should you walk into a Dink's room and he has to like go hide a Nike shirt and people are constantly hiding Nikes, and like, the players that they're playing like are wearing Nike jerseys because Nike has the contracts. Like even if you're a Reebok or Adidas person, you're still stuck wearing a lot of Nike apparel on your shirt sometimes. So it's although the famous thing, right, isn't Shaq like, didn't Shaq cover the Nike signs at the at one of the Olympics because he's a Reebok guy? Like Nike sponsored the Olympic clothes, so isn't that a Shaq thing?
And he spent the whole documentary doing that, Akiva. Like every time he would see Nike, he's like, take that off.
Yeah.
I like
they should have signed them just for like that. I feel like their business strategy is like the more people we sign, like the less people say something like that, because everyone else it's so ubiquitous. Everyone else is just like Nike. The one thing of like, because it felt a little not like scripted, but it felt a little bit like they weren't really showing things. The one interesting scene that was funny was like they're showing Shaq designs for the new shoe.
Yeah.
And the one of like the product guys is like so nervous, and he's like, well, he's like sweating, and he's like, I like it, and he's like, you like it? Shaq was like, and the guy was basically like, why did I sign up to be on camera? Can I like get an NDA sign the release? He was like, I don't know how long that guy's there. I wonder if he left and they like made him look bad. Like he was the one guy in the whole show that they made look bad. But he was so nervous to pitch to Shaq. And then Shaq doesn't like the shoe, which is weird. Everyone else likes the shoe, and then Shaq is like, I don't love it. And he's like, but everyone else here does. So that's kind of weird that they had Shaq say he doesn't like the shoe.
Yeah, there was a lot of like Shaq is the old man, yelling at the cloud. That's kind of how it feels. Like, Shaq, here's the new shoe. He's like, I don't like that. He's like, yeah, but this is what the kids are wearing. He's like, yeah, but I don't like it. And they're like talking about the technology. He's like, I don't care. I don't like the shoe. I don't like the shoe. But he'll tell us, well, I surround myself with people who are smarter than me so they can make these decisions because they're clearly more tapped in. I'm bringing in Sharief because he's younger and he'll get it. He's able to talk to get like he's definitely. Yeah, exactly. He's leaning into like, I didn't like it, but like we at Reebok don't care what old people think. We are down for what the young like. That's how it was coming off to me. Like it was still part of the commercial, which is like, yeah, you don't have to worry about some scruffy old man telling you what shoe is nice and not. You just come listen to my kid Sharief. And it's like, yeah, Sharief will tell you, and he's like 2 thumbs up. So yeah, and that guy that that was very intimidated. He wasn't the only person intimidated to say something about in front of Shaq, and that's like a running joke too. When he pulls up on Dink, Dink just starts missing all his shots. Yeah, and I was like, what? And in my mind, I was like, oh, he's so nervous. And now you tell me that like he doesn't really have any NBA prospects. Like maybe that's just him.
They were there for 3 hours trying to see him hit 4 in a row, and he couldn't.
Yeah, like that's all. Like I think it's tough because Shaq is intimidating. He's a big guy. He's a big guy. That's a big, huge guy. He's a famous basketball player. He's super rich and all this other stuff. So he's intimidating in a lot of ways. And so yeah, they don't want to give him any bad news. They're afraid of him, and like they're afraid of him. But I feel like they're afraid of Shaq, but they respect Allen Iverson. When they bring him in, they're like, he's a fashion icon. If he doesn't like it, then it's not getting past the smell test. And we're not going to move forward with it. Like, but with Shaq, it's kind of like they're like, so do you like the color, please? Like, did you hear about the technology? And Shaq's like, I don't care about that. She's like, so yeah, it's 2 different approaches, but I think you needed that balance. I think the people at Reebok were smart enough to bring Shaq in as the president, but also to go to AI and be like, can you help? Because you actually know about fashion or at least shoes. Or I feel like the youth connect probably a little bit more with AI than they do Shaq.
I do think that it has become like for non-Nike, it has kind of become what they've done. So Steph makes, Under Armour makes Steph like, gives him his own division. I think SGA is like the president of basketball at Converse. Like I think like everyone's biggest endorser at this point is, has some sort of thing. But yeah, for Reebok, because it didn't exist, they had to do retired players. Do you know the site kicksstats.com?
No.
So I found this when I was looking for who wears which shoes. It's basically a site that tells you who wore what shoe in every single NBA and WNBA game ever. So if you
this
click
sounds
on
like an Akiva site.
Yeah,
like, this sounds like something you would have.
If you click on a shoe or a player, it'll say like, so there's a couple guys who like Montrezl Harrell. I forget it. Montrez like wore a different shoe every single game. So he's like the only other guy I found who was wearing Reeboks a couple of years ago. Like he literally wore a different shoe every game, just as a bit. Probably he didn't have a contract, but yeah, there's like thousands of shoes, and you could see like, all right, whoever wears each shoe every game. So I don't know. It was interesting, but it made me realize like, remember Fila, Grant Hill, and Fila? Like there were so many like little brands. Yeah.
Fila also had a good run. Yeah,
Fila was probably like number 4 at one point.
It was like the slept on one. Like, oh, did you look at these feelers? And you're like, oh no, that's not bad. Yeah, I love this site actually. Like, but I do think this is an Akiva site. Like, I feel like when you're in, like, you add this to your repertoire of just like basketball and sports facts, and now you can tell people what shoe they wore too. Yeah, I feel like it takes it to the next level. I'm looking now. June 9th, 2025. One player played in Jordans. Like they legit will tell you how many people wore that type of shoe on any given day. This site is crazy.
It's a crazy site. Yeah, I'd like to know who upkeeps it. Andre Iguodala wore Yeezys in a game once. Who knew?
That's crazy.
And David Duke Jr. Probably the wrong name for someone wearing Yeezys, but it's a whole nother story for a different time.
Yeah, for sure. That's crazy. To wear Yeezys in a game is also kind of crazy. But yeah, so the documentary is that, right? It's Shaq navigating family, Sharief, and his goals to be a basketball player versus like his goal to make his dad happy and stay, in the family business. And then Shaq trying to uplift Reebok with these new up and coming stars and these celebrities. And like you said, to varying degrees of success, it's like he signed them, but almost like, but did any of these signings mean anything? Like the Angel Reese is huge. And I think DJ Carrington is huge too. How do you think the Mattis signing is going? Like now that he is the one person in the league, do you think he is like a good ambassador for a Reebok brand?
I don't think he can ever be your lead guy for a shoe. I really don't think so. He does get, honestly, like you see it even in the documentary, he gets a little bit of a rap. I think people don't realize because he has a Lithuanian name, like that he is born in Chicago, like fully American kid. There's a bunch of Lithuanian guys in the league who grew up in Lithuania. So he is an interesting kid. He's bounced around a lot. I think he was at like 10 different high schools. He had a decent first year. He averaged 8.5 points in his first season, could shoot the ball. He's going to have a long career in the NBA. But he's a roster guy. He can't be your lead. They're not going to be like Air Buzelis in a couple years. He's not going to be, he can't be your lead guy, but he can be another person. Like in the WNBA, they have a couple people like Anissa Mar. They have a couple of people also wearing the Angel Reese shoes. Although this is not, it wasn't totally clear. I think that's not the signature shoe. I think that's coming soon. But these are just like the Engine A is just like their first shoe, and she's sort of the main spokesperson for it. But that's not like the Reese. She's going to have her own. Reese. I think so. To my knowledge, the only WNBA player who has their own shoe, I think Asia Wilson has her own. I think, but I don't even think like Caitlin Clark or Paige Beckers or anyone have their own yet.
Yeah, like I don't know. I'm starting to kind of agree with the doc, just saying lean into the WNBA. I feel like it's an untapped market. Obviously, it's not going to bring you the returns that the NBA would make, but it doesn't feel like you have a lot of room in the NBA to make these moves. And like you said, we don't know what the budget is, but it's not great. Like they get a counter offer at one point where they're like, we got to step away from that. Like Shaq calls in his childhood friend or like his friend from, I guess when Sharief was a kid. And he's like, hey, can you come over and have some questions? Yeah. What happens when you really want a player and you can't afford them? The guy's like, then get somebody you can afford, go somewhere else because you cannot play these guys' game. Like you can't afford that type of star power. So I don't know. Angel Reese might be the start of maybe it's just a line of women's shoes.
I mean, it's definitely a strategy, and like you're saying, like there are that you couldn't have said this when we were kids, but there definitely are guys who would wear the pink and purple now. And so there is something there. It's definitely a smaller market in terms of shoe sales, basketball shoe sales, but it's like if you're going to be number 4 or 5, like you can still win there for sure. It seems to be where they're going. If you have the biggest star in WNBA and you have Modest Buzelis, one guy in the NBA, probably that's where they're stuck. One thing I really would have liked to see in Chappell, but I know why they can't do it, but it's a bummer. We don't really hear money at all. How much are they giving these guys? What's the budget? Like if this was a real documentary, I know why they can't. It's not realistic for them to drop contracts. Nobody would allow it. And then if they did, the next day they'd call up Buzelis and Nike would be like, "Oh, they're paying you $1.5 million a year. We'll give you 3 right now. Rip up, So you can't do it. But it does take away from the contract from the documentary where it's like, oh, we got a big budget. Like we don't want to blow it all in one player, and then they only sign one mid player. It's kind of interesting.
Yeah, I think the one time we actually got into numbers, it was with SGA, and they shut that down very quickly because they make an offer. They say he already has brand allegiance to Converse, but his contract is up. He's a free agent in this market. Let's try to get him. And we hear 8 figures potentially. And I'm like, there's no way. There's no way Reebok is about to shell that out, and they don't.
Yeah, which means they have to top it, which means they're getting to 12, whatever, which would have been, right. In the hindsight, it would have been a steal, right? Because SGA, very likely about to win a championship in the next week. Whatever they paid, if he's the star player on, even though, and maybe it's one of the reasons other than the fact that your favorite, for people don't understand, like Chappell, I don't know if I would follow basketball if what happened to Chappell happened to me this year. Like you touched on it, but like your favorite team traded their like iconic franchise player, once in a lifetime, but twice in a lifetime because they did have a franchise player for 20 years before this. Somehow found a third one, possibly 6 months later, or a couple months later, but that's a whole nother story. And so like there's this weird thing now where the NBA, like the quality of play is unbelievably high, but like I feel like people don't really care so much about this Oklahoma City Indiana series, and the ratings are low, and SGA is Canadian. I don't know if that hurts him, but like he's not. I don't know. I don't think he's that big of a star. A lot of people dislike Halliburton. I feel like there's not so much juice. So I don't know, but it's either way, signing SGA would have been a big deal. But it seemed like there's no way that there's like, well, we're going to sign him for 11, but so instead we're going to spend $1 million on this other guy.
Right. No, I almost didn't watch basketball. Like it was tough. It was tough because it felt like, I think from my perspective, I've been a Mavs fan my entire life, right? Like forever. And so when we got our franchise player, he also stayed my entire life. You know, like he was kind of like, we're here. He's not going anywhere. I'm not going anywhere. We have this relationship to where I can trust that this man is my favorite player is on my favorite team. That's not something I've ever experienced. Like I've never experienced my favorite player being on a different team. And I think that's something that is unique to the Mavericks fans, a lot of them. Like unless you're like, it's like a lot of people are Kobe guys, even though they're like, you know, Rockets fans or something like that, LeBron guys, and like all this other stuff. Like I was a Dirk guy the entire time. And so when Luka comes, we're like, now we're all Luka guys. You know, Luka is our guy. He's on our team. We don't have to worry about him leaving. And then he leaves. And I'm like, well, I can't root for Luka anymore because he doesn't play here anymore. Like we don't ever comprehend that in Dallas, I don't think. And so at first I was devastated. But like you said, things change, you know. And if you have to sell your soul to get a potential, you know, first round draft pick the following year because it's rigged, then maybe, you know, I feel like we did our time. I think we did. We held up our end of the bargain, right? We sent Luka to a large market over to LA where they're going to get a ton of ratings. And in return, we were getting blessed with the first round pick. So rigged or not, I think that they wanted me back for season in 2025. Like, because at first I thought I was done. I thought it was over.
Mm-hmm.
Like this is like Lamar Jackson. Had Lamar Jackson left and went to Miami, I don't know what I would have done with the Ravens. Like I just don't know. Like I don't know what I would have done because I would have thought that was so stupid to let him leave. And I would have been so mad at them that I don't know if I could have supported it, but I also never rooted for another team. So that's why I was in hell. And I think that's why a lot of the Mavericks fans were in hell. So I don't know. Mm-hmm. Maybe they go in and they try to make Reebok the official shoe of the Mavericks. I don't know. There would be an uphill battle. I really think the NBA is just like, they're just drawing dead there.
Yeah. Although Nico Harrison, the guy who made the horrible trade, used to work at Nike and bragged that he was the guy that basically lost them Steph Curry. So, and now he's going to be rewarded for winning a ping pong ball lottery. And
no, that ping pong
maybe in your life for the next 5 years.
Yeah, that sucks. You know, that we were definitely like, can he just go instead? But you know, if I start talking about all the Mavericks leadership problems, then I'll have to like go back very far because like Mark Cuban is no angel either. So, but that's not here. That's not here nor there. That's a conversation for a different time. Akiva, overall, yeah. Would you recommend Power Moves by Shaquille O'Neal to like the average sports fan?
I don't think the average sports fan. Can I quickly read the one review I found of it on Reddit?
Absolutely.
A mile wide and a centimeter deep. Don't watch it. I'll summarize it. One big commercial for a busted shoe brand with less than 1% market share in the only market they're in. Watch it if you want to hear about the up-and-coming G Leaguers or at best 5 years on the bench guys. You're being nice. They didn't have any of those. If I were SGA, I'd sue them for pretending they even had a chance of signing him. You subtract the bad rap tracks, useless placating of Shaq's ego, and nobody bragging. It's 15-minute episodes. That's harsh. But there's
submitted by Alexander
family entertainment. It's not terrible. Yeah, it's not terrible. But I don't think it's a must-watch unless you love Shaq or like the biggest sneakerhead in the world.
Yeah, even as a sneakerhead, it's like, yeah, you'd have to be like I love shoes. I do. I love my sneakers. But like to get me to care about Reebok specifically, yeah, you'd have to be a super fan. Like you have to be like the biggest sneakerhead in the world to get locked in on Reebok specifically. You're just like in on shoes. You know, you don't care about the brand. You just love the art of making the shoe, selling the shoe. Like that, if that's for you.
By the way, that's more interesting. I would love to watch a documentary on like how they make the shoes, how they price them, these sorts of things. Like we meet the CEO, but we don't really get to we don't see him. We could have spent more time with the CEO and like learn what he was working on, but I understand I would follow Shaq over the CEO too. It's more interesting, but it's, you know, you really, what the guy say, an inch wide and a mile deep or whatever, like it is true.
Yeah. Could you see a season 2, like a follow-up on like the Power Moves? Did we ever find out what happened to these up and coming stars?
If it does well, there's no reason not to do a second season. Shaq, interesting thing about Shaq is he'll say yes to anything if you offer him money. Like Shaq's the executive producer here, so he got paid nicely, I'm sure. Shaq will be in any commercial, any Super Bowl commercial. He'll invest in any business for the right price. Like, you know, he goes with quantity over quality. And it's worked for him. He's a zillionaire. So a zillionaire with 100% approval rating. I'm not criticizing, but he'll be there for season 2 if there is one.
Yeah, I just don't know what the content would be like in season 2. Like, because if it's anything like the stuff you told me about what happens immediately after this is filmed, what are they gonna say? Like, they come in and being like, so the Sharief thing didn't work out, and the Nate thing is like still pending. But the
working there now. Like they didn't really update at the end of like a lot of these documentaries too. And now it did air. A lot of this was filmed only like 6 months ago, but they don't really get into. You think Sharief, if we go to his LinkedIn,
I'm going straight there. Let's see.
I can't find him on LinkedIn.
Yeah, I'm on his Wikipedia.
Listen, your dad is 500 million. You don't have to be on LinkedIn. He's not like us.
No. You don't have to do these things. I'm looking now. There's almost nothing about Reebok on his Wikipedia either. So I wonder if he worked for Reebok or if he was just not so much. But like your dad does a thing and you go to work with him, so you work there. It's like, I'll give you I'll give you a couple $1,000 a month or whatever. It's to say that you did something. Like all you gotta do is be a part of this documentary. Go meet with a player or two. Like, what did Sharief really do in the time we saw him on film? I don't know if he was ever an official employee.
That's a good question. I'd like to know his salary. All right, I'm on Shaq's LinkedIn page. Professional basketball player at the NBA for 19 years.
Okay.
NBA analyst at Turner Broadcast Systems until today. Well, not until today, but he hasn't updated it yet as of last week. 13 years, 9 months. Founder and chairman of Big Chicken chain since October 2018. Franchisee at Papa John's since 2019. Founder, chairman of the Shaquille O'Neal Foundation since 2019. Jersey Legends Productions. Don't know what that is, but he's the founder of it. And president of Reebok Basketball. That's the highlight. October 23rd till today. But Magic Johnson he doesn't have his face. They couldn't get Shaq's face, the most photographed guy in the world. He couldn't get one picture.
Yeah, I was like, you could just
his LinkedIn could it be fake? You think it's like someone made a fake LinkedIn for him?
I mean, yeah, that could be fake because I feel like there's a lot more left off of that page for Shaq. Like I think Magic Johnson was a great almost like parallel to Shaq because they both will do anything. Like they have so much going on. Shaq talks about his doctorate in this, like in his dissertation, being like the duality of fun and leadership. And so it's like, does his LinkedIn page say Dr. Shaquille O'Neal?
It's a good question.
I mean, PhD.
It says Hall of Fame entrepreneur, philanthropist, TV personality, DJ. It does not mention that he's a doctor. Now he is endorsed. Should we endorse him for like team building? He's got 12 endorsements already.
Yeah, team building, marketing. Yeah. We didn't actually see him do anything with Excel or anything like that, so we could downvote that. But yeah, you can endorse him for marketing. You can endorse him with team building, leadership skills, fun. Is that humor and leadership is kind of his thing. 80-20.
When I'm researching Olympians, they all have like a lot of them have full-time jobs. So like I go to their LinkedIn. And like sometimes I have to go 10 times, so like they're probably gonna call the police, like the person's stalking me. But it's fun to like that's where I get a lot of like it used to be social media, but now it's like more Instagram, whatever. So you're not getting like real information there. It's like very curated. So you go there and it'll be like, I'll add in like, all right, he owned a Haagen-Dazs and he he's a bartender on the side. Like you get a lot of fun facts. Chris Paul of the NBA, he has a LinkedIn page too. I guess that's how you get signed when you're in the late 30s in the NBA. On LinkedIn.
You got to be on LinkedIn. That's crazy. I wouldn't have expected that. But these people don't need it. They're rich. They got it all. The Shaqs and Chris Pauls of the world, they don't need a LinkedIn. Who's looking for them on LinkedIn? Like, aside from you, who's researching them, but like, who's the guy who's like, I need Shaq. Let me go to his LinkedIn page.
Should I message him and ask if he wants to come on Nothing But Netflix next week?
For sure. Definitely.
What
because we just trashed his show. I don't know, but don't tell him we talked about this.
Well, Chris Paul. I'm going to ask Chris Paul.
Oh, okay. Woo, I thought you were talking about
Chris
Shaq.
Paul does appear in this, right? I think we see him.
We might have got a clip of him, but not like he doesn't get like any like speaking line or anything like that.
No, he doesn't have speaking line, but I think we see him at a game.
It's so funny to me because there are times where Shaq's like, our team couldn't get in touch with this basketball player. And it's like, you mean to tell me like up and coming basketball player, like a high school or college
wouldn't take Shaq's call.
It's ignoring Shaq. It's like if Shaq calls, everybody stop. I don't care what my 100%. Agent says. I'm going to talk to him.
Now, now the agent, you're probably not even allowed to call the player these days. You probably have to call. The agent, but you'd get in trouble probably for not. But yeah, I agree. You're not returning Shaq's call. Guy's got a hand in every business. He's like, you don't know if he's calling you to represent you or he wants, he wants to add you to some chain restaurant or something.
Right. Yeah. 100%. So message Chris Paul and tell him next week we're talking about scandal. I think.
Okay.
I think. Yeah. Yeah. I think Chris Paul would do it. I think Shaq would do it. I think if we didn't just finish like not so high on power moves, I think Shaq would do it.
The problem is Shaq doesn't show up for free to do anything.
He's my frat brother. I think I can lean on that.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe you have an it.
Yeah, I don't think
he's charging you. Just maybe he's giving you the 50% frat off.
Yeah. Like I'm like, hey man, I put on the frat. You know what I'm saying?
Do you think if you saw him on the street and you meant what can you say to like?
Yeah, I couldn't get him to come.
You guys have like a catchphrase or something?
Yeah, he would definitely know it was me. Like he would know I was a frat member. And matter of fact, there was a moment where in the documentary he was wearing one of our frat jackets. Because the thing is, our colors are purple and gold, and so colors,
and LSU.
Right, and so I had to go back and look, like to be like, was that one of our jackets? And it was. The NBA actually, like my organization specifically, we love like an athlete. Like we're chock full of like the Shaq types. So it's not out of the ordinary for.
Is he the proudest? Is he the proudest alum of your frat?
No. Like who we're the proudest of, or like the most like.
Well, he's probably the most. I'd assume he's one of the most famous, but
I mean, but most famous is probably tough for my frat. Like Stephen A. Smith is in my frat.
Okay, I think Shaq might be more famous than Stephen A. Smith.
Probably Michael Jordan.
Okay, all right, that probably wins.
Yeah, Michael Jordan, Vince Carter. Like the basketball was full.
You know
of
what? Is it possible that nowadays none of the athletes would be in a frat, but back then they were like much more embedded in the campus? And now they probably have like separate housing. And I just can't imagine like in the last 10 years, superstar athletes being in a fraternity.
Well, Jalen Hurst is a part of my frat too.
Okay, so I'm wrong. What school though? Yeah. He went to two different schools.
I don't even remember. I do not remember.
All right, so maybe I'm wrong. My guess would have been that has changed, but I guess not.
No. Like I said, my organization is really like we love us some some athletes. Like we're gonna bring in the big athletes. And so like Ray Lewis, like there's a lot of them. But so like I could get a picture with Shaq. I am confident that Shaq would stop and take a picture with me. But I don't think I could get him to do anything for me for free outside of a picture.
No, probably not. Yeah. It's probably a few 100,000 a year.
Right. Like I'd have to name drop like three different frat brothers to get to that point where Shaq would be like, okay, I'll talk to you.
So you mean you have like 3 degrees of connection where you could like
for sure. For sure. A guy, one of the a former Detroit Piston was in my chapter, my local chapter. Jason Maxiel. Do you remember Jason Maxiel?
Oh yeah, of course. Yeah. He had a career. Maxiel
that's my dog. Career. Yeah, me and him are friends.
No,
it's my frat brother. Yeah. Obviously, like not like locally, but he lives in Dallas now, and so I see Jason every now and then. But yeah, so I feel like if I go to Jason could go to somebody who could get to Shaq.
All right.
I don't know if matter of fact,
Jason is everyone 3 degrees from Shaquille O'Neal.
Well, here's the thing. Jason is actually 1 degree from Shaquille. I know we're completely off topic, but Jason's wife, Brandy, was on Basketball Wives.
With Shawnee?
With Shawnee O'Neal. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I think that's a sore subject, but okay. Don't bring
famously fired by Shawnee O'Neal on air. So
wow.
Yeah. But anyway, that's for the Basketball Wives fans out there. Akiva, this was so much fun.
Separate podcast. Yeah.
Yeah, separate podcast. How many degrees of separation are we from Shaquille O'Neal? That's a fun game. Maybe it's a RHAP idea.
Everyone in the comments, write in, tell us how you could get to Shaquille. I believe his daughter married a Jewish guy. I bet I could get there in 3 also if I did some math on Facebook after that.
Yeah, they keep the trap tight. That's how you can touch people like that, not far away. It's like got him.
3 degrees of Shaquille O'Neal.
That works for me. Akiva, what do you have going on in your world?
Okay, Rob and Akiva need a podcast. We'll be back this weekend. Last couple weeks, we did Mission Impossible. We did Gen Z boot camp. We learned some Gen Z words. Nobody's complained about hearing me say, I'm not even going to repeat it, but
if you say skibbity.
No, I wouldn't say skibbity. I thought I said huzz too many times, but nobody complains. So And then 32 fans, we got episodes coming up this week. And NGOG, only 4 episodes left in our series rewatch with Ali Lasher.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Almost done.
What do you do to follow up something like that? Like, this has been a momentous project. Like, this is crazy. And now it's done. So do you and Ali like shake hands and be like, all right, it was nice meeting you?
I don't think she'd shake my hand. No, I think so we finished I finished Seinfeld podcast. Like, I started and ended a podcast once, which you have with Rob also, with Suits, and that's not your right. Did you watch another full show?
No, I think he basically fired me after Suits. So he was like, all right, we're good. But no, like, but you took Seinfeld and you.
Oh, we took a long break. So like, I don't have an immediate plan. If Ali has something, God bless. But other than that, I could spend more time with my 1.5 million kids.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on that. As far as like almost being done with NGOG, that's crazy. And and I think I'm gonna join you on RHAP this week, right?
Yes, you will be. You are a guest on RHAP. I think it's gonna be a very fun episode. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, and then if you're listening to this, of course, you can catch us here next week. I think we're going to be talking about Scandal, but I could be wrong. Let us know what you want us to talk about in the comments here on our YouTube page, on RHAP's YouTube page. Or, of course, you can leave us a comment on our multiple social media platforms at Nothing But RHAP. Or you can leave us a 5-star review and let us know what you think about the podcast or what you thought about Power Moves over here on the Nothing But Netflix podcast on nothingbutpod.com. You can also catch me on my podcast, Recap Kickback, talk about whatever I want to talk about. Mario and I talk about the new Tyler Perry movie that is on Netflix called Straw. Apparently it's his best film, and the bar has been in hell for so long that I don't know what to expect, but I'm going to check it out, and we will get that podcast to you this week. And then Chantel and I are tackling The Flavor of Love. Akiva, she's never seen an episode of The Flavor of Love, and so we're going to watch them.
I saw the post. That's exciting.
Yeah.
So you're watching all of it or just one episode?
We're watching all of it. We did one episode, but she's unspoiled. Somehow, she doesn't know what's about to happen to her. And so I'm like, okay, well, let's do it.
How many seasons are there?
There's 3, but we're definitely doing 1 and 2. I don't know if we're gonna go to 3. Maybe it'll be our pet project, like your NGOG rewatch, and we just go through it for the next 4 or 5 years. But we're gonna spend the next 9 or so weeks talking about The Flavor of Love over on recapkickback.com. You can subscribe to that, youtube.com/@recapkickback, and then you can check me out on the Was It Good Though podcast this week. I joined them to talk about Rush Hour. They asked the question, was it good though? And I have some strong opinions about that movie. So check it out and make sure you subscribe and follow me wherever I am at Recap Kickback on all social media platforms. But that's it. We'll catch you all next week when we come back for more Nothing But Netflix. Take care, everybody. Bye.
This is RHAP. We know reality TV.